Good morning. Thank you, Duke, for asking me to speak today. How are you? How is everyone? Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that, My life's been crazy lately, which is what I want to talk with you about. I think in the past 6 weeks, I've been in 6 states and 5 time zones. I've had 2 dear people to me die, one peacefully and one at the end of a bad day. I've done a memorial service, and I have, in the midst of all of that, been doing my job. So it's been a pretty intense 6 weeks, and it's felt very chaotic inside for me, and I'm experiencing a bit of turmoil. So yesterday, I spent the day just being at peace. And I decided I would call my sister to find out how she's doing and find out how my mom's doing in the nursing home. So my sister says, I'm at my wit's end. Mother's in one of her moods. She won't take a shower. She won't get out of bed. She won't talk to anybody. I'm thinking, oh, great. And Linda says, and I've been running in all directions trying to escape, and I'm not getting anywhere. I am so exhausted. And so I just listened to her and supported her, and we had a couple of really good laughs. I don't know about you, but sometimes I go through periods in my life where my drama and my storyline seems so intense that sharing it over and over and over again, when people say, hey, what's going on? Well, you wouldn't believe this and this and this and this and this. And then after a while, you just get to the point, or I do, where I'm bored with it. It's like, I am boring myself as it comes out of my mouth, although it's fascinating to other people. It's fascinating, not because my story is so fascinating, but we are fascinated with stories. And let's face it, each one of us is the star in our own story. And there's no story more fascinating than one's own, right? I don't know about you, but since I was a kid, I always wanted to understand. I know that's why I went into psychology, because I wanted to understand the dysfunction in my family. I had to find a reason to love them anyway, and I thought, okay, if I can just understand, then I will be able to cope, and I will be able to do the right thing to fix this. So I found myself saying to my sister yesterday, well, next time you're at the nursing home, call me and let me talk to Mother. Maybe I can talk some sense into her. Maybe I can reason with her. And then afterwards, when I sat with that, I thought, now, why is that, Donna? Why can't you just let her be? If she doesn't want to shower, she doesn't want to shower. I thought, well, if I can reason with her, if I can understand her motivation, then I can manipulate that to get her to do what's for her own good, And how many times do we approach life that way, thinking if I can just reason it out and I can just figure it out? What I'm doing when I'm in that mode is trying to analyze the content of my life. My favorite teacher, one of my very favorite spiritual teachers, is Dr. David Hawkins. He made his transition about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, but I actually learned a great deal from him. And he said, there is the self, the deeper self, that is context. From this deeper self, everything arises. And then there's the content within the context. The content is the storyline, and the ego is part of that content. So when I'm in my analysis mode, which is frequently, let me analyze the situation, let me analyze the problem, let me figure out what to do here, I have to ask my question, who is it that wants to know? Who is it that wants to know all that? Well, it's my ego self, because my deeper self has no need to know. It is sufficient unto itself. How much time do I spend in my life, and do you spend in your life, trying to rearrange the contents of our lives so that we can have a better story, so that we can say we're living a meaningful, happy life? I know that what's going on in my life in some way is a reflection of my content, and oh, isn't that seductive? Oh, look at all I get to play with, the content in my life, to figure out more about me, right? But what is the self that wants to know more about me? It's the ego self. So I get to have all of these experiences mirroring back to me only my ego self. It's really interesting. So I have choices. You know, we all have choices. So what choices do we have? If my life is chaotic and in turmoil, or if I'm feeling pinched or pressured in any way, I have choices. And one of the choices is I can make changes in my life, you know? I can move to another house. I can change my hair color. I can change the wall color. I can take a trip. I can do all kinds of things that change the external of my life. But I've learned a long time ago that wherever I go, there I am. And just because I've become a redhead and I've taken a trip to the Bahamas doesn't mean the chaos and the turmoil stayed behind. So that doesn't work. And then I see, oh, that was an external solution. I know I'll turn within so that I can better understand myself. So then I start working on me to try to understand what makes me tick and why I'm making the choices that I'm making. But you know what I've come to see? I've come to see that I'm still stuck in that story, because who I believe myself to be is part of that storyline. Do you know what I mean? Here I am, poor little whatever, or here I am, victorious whatever. It's all part of that storyline. So my search, my spiritual search, is to know the truth that makes me free. The third option I have, which is one of my favorite scriptures, it's from Job 22nd, verse 21, agree with God and be at peace. Agree with God and be at peace, and therefore good will come to you. Well, that's a tall order, you know, agree with God. To agree means to be of one accord, one mind. Well, how do I know the mind of God? How am I going to agree with God? And then I say, oh, I know. I'll go to my heart, because we know that the gateway to having an experience of God is through the heart, because God is love. I will go to my heart. I will search my heart, and I will find this God that I agree with. And I go inside and I find my heart's conflicted. I go inside and I find my heart really is torn. My heart is still carrying things from the past and still hoping for things from the future. My heart is not at peace. So maybe this heart searching isn't quite it. Oh, I know. I'll go to my soul. Yeah, I'll go to my soul and I will search my soul. And surely I will meet God there. So I go into my soul and I be still, and I open myself up to what I think I have been and who I think I am now, and I find there's conflict there. There's still all of this churning, because I'm thinking my soul has not matured. My soul is not going to give me the peace and the power that I am searching for. And then I say, stop. Stop. Because as long as I am searching for God, I am in the search mode. And searching is what I'm practicing. Finding God is an entirely different matter. And where will I find God? I find God when I stop. The psalmist said, "Peace, be still, and know that I am God." So I find God when I just stop and let all of this analysis settle, let all of this judgment settle, let all of this heart energy that seems conflicted and torn, just let it settle. I sit with myself, and eventually what emerges is an expanded experience of me, one that is able to step outside the story, one that is able to see that there's not one little speck of dust out of place in this universe. There is not a single thing that is happening that shouldn't be happening. That's a pretty big realization. It's just a happening. And it's happening to teach me to detach and to know the truth that makes me free. This deeper self that we all have has never been shut down. It's never been stifled. It's never been betrayed. It's never been abandoned. It's never been harmed in any way. It doesn't require that we believe in it. It just simply is. And from its vast vision, we begin to look at our lives from a different perspective. I believe Jesus was teaching us this when he said, "Be in the world, but not of it." Be your character in your storyline, but know that that is not the truth of you. Step back from your story and be in the place of authentic peace and power. And from the place of authentic peace and power, the context will be given for your storyline, and it will make sense, and you won't resist it, and you will be happy and grateful to be in it. It's an amazing thing to be able to touch the deep self. Am I there? Oh, no. Oh, no. I dance in and out of the storyline, and I'm the character, and oh, this is happening to me, to, oh my gosh, this is just happening, and it's all okay. But there was a time in my life when I could not step outside of my storyline. I identified heavily with my ego self having experiences. And I thought the way to salvation was to figure it out and to improve my ego. You know, I make it a good little ego instead of a bad ego. I make it a sweet ego. I make it a helpful ego. You know? But the truth of the matter is that the ego is the servant of the deeper self. And until we come into an experience of, a knowledge of, a touching of that profound inner space, we will just be arranging the content of our lives. Dr. Hawkins said this about reasoning, trying to reason things. He said, don't go with the ego. He said, don't go with the ego. Don't listen to reason. Reason is the ego's playground. That's pretty profound. Reason is the ego's playground. Boy, I love that playground. But it does not bring me peace, and it does not give me the authentic power I seek to be the person that I want to be in this world. Reasoning is fine. We certainly need to use our minds and our intellect, but the power is in the deeper self, which is beyond the story. It is beyond time and space. It is not limited in any way. It is pure awareness. And from this place of pure awareness that's unattached, we know the right things to do. Because there is only love as its vibration and infinite wisdom. And we all have access to it. But in today's world, it's fast, 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 fast. When do we get to be still? We get to be still when we say, stop, enough. I'm going to be still today. I am not getting out of this bed until the Spirit says move. I am not eating a single thing until the Spirit says eat. I'm serious. That's what it takes for me to just slow down and to touch the part of me that I have come to know as the real me. The real me. The more we spend time just being with ourselves, the more we give this deeper self permission to make itself known. You don't have to work at it. You already have it. All that you seek arises from this deeper self. You know, in our search for God, when we find God, it's really ironic. What we find is God's been here all along and God was never lost. It's just we who have not given ourselves permission to receive the gift of the wisdom of the deeper self. All healing arises from there. All prosperity comes from there. Miracles come from this place of the deeper self. One of my favorite stories from childhood are the Uncle Remus stories that John Chandler Harris published in 1881. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Uncle Remus was a former slave on a plantation, and he told stories to groups of children, and later this was made popular in the movie Songs of the South. During the mid-20th century, there was a lot of controversy around the Uncle Remus stories because some people said that they were racist. They were racist in that Uncle Remus was speaking through the deep Southern dialect of the slaves. But John Chandler Harris said, I worked on the plantations as a young man. He was a journalist, by the way. Harris was a journalist. And he said, these stories were stories I heard from them, and I committed them to memory, and I published them. And what they truly are African American animal stories. They have their origin in Africa. So I love the content of these stories. And my favorite story is one some of you may know about, there's Brother Fox and Brother Rabbit, right? And they're always trying to outdo one another. And there's Brother Bear, too. So Brother Fox is really smart up in his head. He decides he's going to catch Brother Rabbit. So he takes this lump of tar, and he puts a hat on it, and puts 2 lumps of coal, make it look like it had eyes, and set it on the side of the road. And here comes Brother Rabbit along, and he tips his hat to what he thinks is a person sitting there and says, howdy. And the tar baby said nothing. So Brother Rabbit said, I'm going to teach you some manners. I said, howdy. And of course, the lump of tar says nothing. So he said, if you don't speak to me, I'm going to punch you in the face. Which he did. Boom. What happens? He can't get his fist out, right? Turn loose of my fist, he says, or I'm going to hit you with my other fist. Now, this is mirroring our learning experiences, okay? That's stuck. Or I'm going to hit you with the other fist. Boom. Both fists are stuck now. Turn loose of my hands or I'm going to kick you with my foot. Great solutions, right? This is faulty analysis, right? So anyway, and of course he winds up getting so enmeshed in the tar that he cannot move. This has been my metaphor my whole life for how when I fight situations, how I try to make something happen that I want to happen, that I just end up getting all gummed up. So along comes Brother Fox, and he's really happy. Look what he's accomplished. He set a trap, and he caught his prey. So he says, what am I going to do with you now, Brother Rabbit? He says, I know, I think I'm going to skin you. And Brother Rabbit says, oh, skin me if you want to, but whatever you do, don't throw me in the briar patch. So the fox sits there for a minute, goes, well, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just put you in boiling water and make stew out of you right now. And Brother Rabbit says, well, you can make stew out of me right now if you want to, but don't throw me in the briar patch. So the fox stands there for a minute. He comes up with something else, and I can't remember. And then finally he says, I know, I'm going to throw you in the briar patch. And he picks him up by the ears and takes him and whirls him into the briar patch. And of course the rabbit, as happy as he can be, and calls back, I was born and bred in the briar patch. Born and bred in the briar patch. We are born and bred from the deeper self. And we resist it. No, don't. Do what you want, but don't make me be still. Don't make me be still. Don't make me sit here all day and be uncomfortable because my conditioning says I have things to do. I need to get up and do. Just be still. Be still and know your deeper self, from which all true understanding arises. All true insights arise. Agree with God. Agree with your nature of being at home in this universe, so that no matter what is happening in your storyline, you are centered and poised in the Christ mind, and nothing can disturb the calm peace of your soul. And that was Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore's favorite affirmation. I am centered and poised in the Christ mind. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. The Christ mind is this deeper self. So, what do I do with my mother? What do I do with my sister? What do I do with me? I abide in the place of knowing, and as I do, I feel the deep connection and the knowledge that it's all okay. Everything that is arising out of the universe has a deeper reason that's coming from this self. So I want to close my sharing this morning with this passage from Dr. Hawkins, who gave many, many lectures in Sedona. I attended one. It was a profound experience for me. But in this lecture, he talks about the context of the self. He said, when you can know that your deep self is context and your small self, that's the character in the story, is content, you've made a huge leap forward, because most seekers just reshuffle content, trying to improve life. Step back and allow the presence to teach you. So I want to end with this passage. He said, stay with context continuously. This makes one's life a prayer. Can you feel that? If you stay with your deeper self, if that is your focus, it turns your life into a prayer. Witness the sacredness of all things. All happens spontaneously, and I, the little ego self, is not the cause. With humility, say to the mind, you see what's happening, but you don't understand it. You explain it, but explanation is extraneous to reality. Okay, let me talk about that just for a minute. We can explain things, but that's not necessary to reality because reality is what it is. And when we cease to fight it, we cease to analyze it, and we simply love it without attachment, then we are centered in that place. And it needs no explanation. It needs no explanation. Then the last thing he said, don't go with the ego, don't listen to reason, because reason is the ego's playground. So let me just say, the next time you're churning, the next time you find yourself analyzing or pacing the floor with your checkbook like I used to do, thinking if I just add it up one more time, I'm going to get a different result. You know, when you find yourself in that mode, stop. Stop. Breathe. Let it go. Sit. Invite that expanded vision that comes from the deeper self to heal you and to bring you round right. God bless.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I now invite you to take a deeper look within your soul. You may close your eyes if you're willing. Take a deep breath. Relax. And just listen. It is in this place where only you can go, where you find God. Let go of your worries, anything that may be distracting you mentally or physically. Breathe deeply, knowing that God is with you, and it's okay. Stop and listen to God. Turn your thoughts from the outer to within, to that place of peace. Feel the serenity of God's presence, soothing your mind and relaxing your body. During this time of quiet meditation, focus on the silence of your soul. Here in this sacred place, God waits for you. And in the words of Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, take them as your own as you enter the silence. I am poised and centered in the Christ mind, where nothing disturbs the deep, calm peace of my soul. In the silence. Giving thanks in your mind, that your mind and body are renewed and relaxed. listen. And be. And so it is. Amen.
I open my heart to your sacred presence, dear God. I trust in your enduring love. I am healed at every level of being.